Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about Rod Blagojevich,
Rod Blagojevich.
the former governor of Illinois.
Yes.
It's a fascinating story,
Oh, it is.
full of ambition and questionable decisions.
Yeah. And wiretaps.
A lot of wiretaps.
A lot of wiretaps. So we're basing our deep dive on the American Scandal podcast episode, The Unraveling,
Right.
which focuses specifically on the events surrounding Barack Obama's vacant Senate seat in 2008.
Yes. And you know what's so interesting about Blagojevich's story is it's not just about corruption.
Right.
I mean, though there is plenty of that.
Yeah, there's plenty of that.
It's about how ambition, when coupled with pressure and maybe even a sense of entitlement, can lead to a spectacular downfall.
Yeah, and it really is a wild ride.
It is.
So for those who haven't followed this saga that closely,
right.
Blagojevich was initially like a rising star in Illinois politics.
Well, he was.
But by the time Obama was elected president, things had really started to unravel for him. So multiple scandals were plaguing his administration.
Right.
His approval ratings had plummeted.
Yeah, they were really bad.
And he was facing some serious financial troubles.
Oh, yeah, big time.
You know, his wife Patty's real estate dealings were under scrutiny.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this looming ethics bill that threatened to cut off like a major source of campaign contributions. All of this was creating immense pressure on Blagojevich.
It's almost like he was backed into a corner.
Yeah.
And then, bam, opportunity knocks.
Right.
Or so he thought.
Yeah.
Obama's vacant Senate seat just lands right in his lap.
Yep.
And he sees it as a potential lifeline.
That's right.
Like, this is it.
This is it.
This is going to fix everything.
Yeah, and it's crucial to understand the context here.
Right.
Blagojevich wasn't just some, power-hungry politician looking for a quick buck.
Right.
I mean, he was desperate. He was feeling trapped.
Totally.
And this Senate seat became, in his mind, a way to secure his future.
Like both financially?
Yeah, financially and maybe even politically.
And politically, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that's when his ambition, which had served him so well, like in his rise to power, starts to take a darker turn.
It does.
And he starts to entertain some outlandish ideas for what to do with that Senate seat.
Yes. The podcast highlights this almost fantastical brainstorming that he was doing.
It's crazy, right? He considered appointing himself Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah.
Even Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, it's just nuts.
It's crazy. It paints this picture of a man grasping at straws.
Yeah.
Unable to see the ethical and legal boundaries that he was crossing.
Yeah, like he was just so focused on, I got to get myself out of this mess.
Yeah.
He wasn't thinking clearly.
Yeah.
And wasn't thinking about long-term
consequences.
Consequences, yeah. But while he was cooking up all these schemes,
the FBI was already on his trail.
Oh, yeah.
They had been building a case against him for years.
For years.
Quietly picking off members of his inner circle.
Yeah. Through arrests and plea deals.
And then comes the wiretaps.
Right.
This is where this story takes on this whole new level of intrigue.
It does. In October 2008, the FBI starts bugging Blagojevich's campaign headquarters, and they eventually tap his phone.
Wow.
It was painstaking work for the agents involved.
Can't even imagine.
Hours upon hours of conversation.
Listening and listening.
Trying to find those little incriminating nuggets.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
It is. And wiretaps are really a powerful tool for law enforcement because they can provide direct evidence of criminal intent.
Right.
Which is often so hard to obtain.
Yeah.
So the FBI had high hopes that these recordings would give them what they needed to bring Blagojevich down. So did they get what they were looking for?
They weren't disappointed.
Okay.
On December 3rd, 2008, the agents hit pay dirt.
What happened?
They captured this conversation between Blagojevich and his longtime friend and aide, Lon Monk.
Lon Monk.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is where we see Blagojevich's desperation and his warped sense of entitlement on full display.
What were they talking about?
Well, they were discussing a scheme to leverage a bill that would benefit the owner of some horse racing tracks. Blagojevich was essentially holding this bill hostage, implying he would sign it in exchange for a hefty campaign donation.
So classic quid pro quo.
It was classic.
And for the FBI agents listening in, that must have been just like
I know.
Validation.
A moment of validation.
Like finally we got him.
Yeah, they finally had Blagojevich on tape.
Yep.
Seemingly orchestrating this brazen shakedown.
Wow.
This conversation marked a major turning point in the investigation.
So it sounds like they're ready to move.
They are.
But then things got a little bit more complicated.
They did.
Because word of the investigation leaked to the press.
To the Chicago Tribune specifically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they were about to publish a story about the wiretaps.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so the FBI had to act fast.
They had to.
They couldn't risk Blagojevich destroying evidence.
Right, or fleeing.
Or trying to flee.
Yeah.
So on December 9th, 2008, just days before his birthday,
wow,
the FBI executed this dramatic early morning arrest.
I remember hearing about this.
Yeah, picture this. It's early morning.
Yeah.
Blagojevich is at home with his wife, Patty.
Okay.
Their young daughter, Annie, nestled between them.
Oh.
The phone rings.
Uh-oh.
It's the FBI agent Rob Grant, informing him they have a warrant for his arrest.
Oh, my gosh.
What's striking is that even at this moment of complete shock,
yeah,
Blagojevich's first instinct is to fight back.
Really?
He refuses to resign.
Wow.
And even tries to appoint someone to fill Obama's vacant Senate seat.
He did.
Yeah. He did. Who did he try to appoint?
Roland Burris.
Roland Burris, okay.
A former state attorney general with a seemingly clean record.
Okay.
But this move backfired spectacularly.
I can imagine.
The Senate was already aware of the allegations against Blagojevich.
Right.
And refused to seat Burris.
Wow.
And back in Illinois, the political pressure on Blagojevich was reaching a boiling point. The state legislature launches their own investigation. And on January 9th, 2009, less than a month after his arrest, the Illinois House votes to impeach him.
So here we have Blagojevich removed from office, facing federal charges, and still clinging to this belief that he can somehow salvage his career.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what his state of mind was at that point.
It does raise the question, was this blind denial or a desperate attempt to cling to power?
Yeah.
Or maybe even a genuine belief that he had done nothing wrong?
It's a really interesting question. Yeah, it's a question that continues to intrigue those who followed his story.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to pick up in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay.
We're going to delve into Blagojevich's federal trial,
right,
his bizarre foray into reality TV.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget that.
And his eventual prison sentence.
Right, sounds good.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the saga of Rod Blagojevich.
So we're picking up in April 2009.
Yeah, April 2009.
When a federal grand jury hands down this sweeping indictment, naming not only Blagojevich, but also several key figures in his inner circle.
Okay.
So you've got his chief of staff, John Harris, longtime friend and aide, Lon Monk, top fundraiser, Chris Kelly, and even Blagojevich's own brother, Robert.
Wow. So they were really going after everybody involved.
Yeah, this indictment really broadened the scope of the legal battle.
Right.
It wasn't just about Blagojevich anymore.
Right.
It implicated this whole network of people who had allegedly participated in his schemes.
So what were the main charges they were facing?
Well, their charges included conspiracy to commit fraud and solicitation of bribery.
Okay.
Primarily stemming from that attempt to leverage Obama's Senate seat for personal gain.
Right, right.
And the evidence seemed pretty overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about the wiretaps.
The wiretaps.
Disgruntled former allies willing to testify.
Right.
And probably a mountain of financial records.
Mountains of them.
Yeah.
So it seemed like a pretty solid case.
But despite all of that, Blagojevich maintained his innocence.
He did.
And pleaded not guilty to all charges?
Yeah, he did. It seemed like a very bold strategy.
Yeah, almost reckless, right?
Well, certainly unconventional.
Yeah.
But Blagojevich's legal team had a plan.
What was the plan?
Well, they knew they were facing an uphill battle.
Yeah.
So they decided to take a gamble.
Okay.
And embrace the media spotlight.
So instead of shying away from the public eye, he's doing the opposite.
He's leaning in.
He's leaning in okay.
Yeah, he starts appearing on talk shows.
Wow.
Giving interviews. And even went on reality TV.
Reality TV? What was he thinking?
Well, the thinking was that if they could make Blagojevich a sympathetic figure, even a celebrity of sorts, it might sway public opinion.
Yeah.
And perhaps even influence the jury pool.
So that's how he ended up on Celebrity Apprentice.
Exactly.
I remember watching that season.
It was surreal.
It was so bizarre to see a disgraced former governor competing for Donald Trump's approval.
I know. In April 2010, just a couple of months before his first trial was set to begin, Blagojevich found himself in the boardroom with Trump.
The irony.
I know. It's a spectacle that captured the attention of the nation.
So did this reality TV stint actually help his case at all?
That's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
You know, Blagojevich didn't exactly shine on the show.
Yeah, I remember that.
He struggled with the tasks and even fell asleep during one challenge.
Oh my gosh.
Trump eventually fired him.
He did, yeah.
But not before praising his tenacity.
So June 2010 arrives and Blagojevich's first trial begins.
This is where those FBI wiretaps really come back to haunt him.
Yeah, I bet.
The prosecution presented a very compelling case.
Yeah.
Using the recordings to paint this picture of a governor who had clearly crossed the line.
Yeah.
They also had testimony from several former allies, including John Harris and Lon Monk, who had cut deals with the government in exchange for lighter sentences.
Wow. It seems like his inner circle was crumbling around him.
Yeah, it was a classic case of the walls closing in.
Yeah.
But then came a dramatic twist.
What happened?
The jury found Blagojevich guilty on only 1 out of the 24 counts he was facing.
What?
Lying to the FBI.
Wow, that is a huge surprise.
It was.
It seemed like he had dodged a bullet.
It did. It's a major setback for the prosecution.
Yeah.
But they weren't ready to give up. They immediately announced their intention to retry Blagojevich on the remaining charges.
So round 2 of the legal battle begins.
It does.
What was different this time around?
Well, for one thing, Blagojevich decided to take the stand in his own defense.
He did. He didn't do that in the first trial.
He didn't.
What do you think prompted that decision?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But maybe his lawyers felt like he needed to tell his side of the story directly to the jury.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be a very risky move.
How so?
Well, Blagojevich's testimony didn't go well.
Uh-oh.
He came across as evasive and unconvincing.
Okay.
And the jury didn't really buy his explanations.
And what was the verdict this time?
Well, in May 2011, the jury convicted Blagojevich on 17 out of the 20 remaining counts.
Wow.
There was no escaping a prison sentence this time.
So in March 2012, Blagojevich is sentenced to 14 years in federal prison.
Yeah.
That must have been a devastating blow for him and his family.
It was.
Yeah.
And, you know, he wasn't the only one who faced consequences.
Right.
Several of his co-conspirators received prison sentences as well.
Like who?
Well, Tony Resco, a top fundraiser, got 10.5 years.
Wow.
Stuart Levine, who turned state's witness, got 5.5.
Uh-huh.
Even Lon Monk Blagojevich's longtime friends served 2 years.
So Blagojevich went to prison still proclaiming his innocence.
He did.
But is that really the end of his story?
Not quite. Remember, this is Rod Blagojevich.
Yep.
He's a fighter.
He's got that reputation.
Yeah. And in 2015, while still behind bars, Blagojevich's legal team managed to get 5 of his convictions overturned on appeal.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you remind us what those convictions were for?
Yeah, they all stemmed from his attempts to leverage the Senate seat for a job in the Obama administration.
Okay.
The appeals court ruled that the jury instructions in his second trial were flawed.
Okay.
Basically, they should have been told that seeking a job in exchange for the appointment wasn't necessarily illegal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So even though Blagojevich was ultimately convicted, there's still this debate about whether what he did was actually a crime.
It's a nuanced legal issue.
Yeah.
But despite that small victory, Blagojevich still had 13 convictions on his record.
Right.
And in 2016, a federal court denied his request for a reduced sentence.
Wow.
And it seemed like he would have to serve out his full 14-year term.
Yeah.
But then came this unexpected twist that thrust Blagojevich back into the spotlight.
What happened?
In 2020, President Donald Trump.
Donald Trump?
The same man who had fired Blagojevich on Celebrity Apprentice.
Oh, wow.
Commuted his sentence.
Wow, that's incredible.
I know. It was an ironic turn of events.
Yeah.
Almost seemed scripted for reality TV.
Right.
So after serving just over half of his sentence, Blagojevich was a free man.
Wow. So what did he do with his newfound freedom?
Well, he certainly didn't fade into obscurity.
Yeah, I haven't heard that.
Blagojevich quickly returned to his defiant stance. maintaining his innocence.
Wow.
And even expressing a desire to return to politics.
Oh, wow.
So it seemed like he was determined to rewrite his narrative.
Yeah.
To reclaim some semblance of the power and influence he had lost.
So did he actually try to run for office again?
Well, in 2021,
okay,
he sued the state of Illinois.
He sued the state?
Yeah, demanding that they restore his right to run for elected office.
Oh, wow.
So that case is still pending.
It is.
But in the meantime, Blagojevich has stayed in the public eye, giving interviews, appearing on podcasts,
right,
and even starting his own podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
It's fascinating how he's managed to remain relevant.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what's driving him at this point.
Yeah, like what is it?
Is it a genuine belief in his innocence?
Yeah.
A thirst for redemption?
Uh-huh.
Or perhaps something else altogether?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah, it really is incredible how he's just managed to, like, stay in the spotlight.
I know.
Even after all these years.
Yeah, he's a captivating figure. Yeah. I mean, whether you see him as a victim of circumstance or a symbol of political corruption,
right,
you can't deny that Blagojevich's story really makes us confront these uncomfortable questions.
Yeah.
About power, ambition, and the potential for corruption that exists within our systems.
Totally. So, thinking back on everything that we've discussed, what are some of the key takeaways from this deep dive? Like, what should our listener be reflecting on after hearing this whole story?
Well, firstly, I think it underscores the importance of a vigilant and independent press.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, investigative journalism played a crucial role in uncovering Blagojevich's schemes. I mean, without reporters like digging into his administration's activities and the Chicago Tribune's reporting on the FBI investigation, who knows how long his actions might have continued unchecked.
It's a good reminder that a free press is essential to holding those in power accountable.
Absolutely. And secondly, I think Blagojevich's story serves as this cautionary tale about the corrosive nature of power.
Yeah.
You know, we often talk about how power corrupts.
Right.
And his case is like a stark example of that principle in action.
Totally.
It reinforces the need for checks and balances, for transparency, and for ethical conduct at all levels of government.
Yeah, and it also highlights the fact that even someone who starts out with good intentions can be led astray by ambition and a sense of entitlement.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always a clear-cut case of good versus evil.
Right.
Blagojevich's story is more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
It seems like he began his career with genuine goals.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, his ambition became warped.
Right.
And he lost sight of those ethical boundaries that should guide those in positions of authority.
Yeah. And the consequences of his actions were far-reaching.
Absolutely.
Impacting not only his own life, but also the lives of his family, his staff, and the people of Illinois.
Precisely. His actions eroded public trust in government.
Yeah.
And the stain of his scandal lingers even today.
Yeah. It's a stark reminder that the decisions made by those in power have a ripple effect that extends far beyond their immediate circle.
For sure.
So for those who want to delve deeper into this story, we recommend checking out other episodes of the American Scandal podcast.
Yes.
Which offers a really comprehensive look at various political scandals throughout American history.
It does.
Uh-huh.
And there are also some excellent books on the subject.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Well, you've got Golden by Jeff Cohen and John Chase. And A Just Cause by Bernard Siraki.
Okay, great. And what about for those who want to, like, dig into the actual, the investigation and the legal proceeding?
Oh, yeah. Well, the Chicago Tribune archives offer a wealth of information.
Oh, okay.
They covered this story extensively.
Perfect. And that will be linked in the show notes for everyone listening.
Perfect.
So this deep dive has provided a lot to think about. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
The question of Blagojevich's state of mind.
Right.
To this day, he maintains his innocence.
He does.
So do you think this is genuine denial?
Right.
A carefully crafted public persona? Or perhaps something else entirely?
You know, it's a question that continues to fascinate and perplex those who followed his story.
Yeah.
Some believe that he truly believes he did nothing wrong.
Right.
While others see it as a calculated strategy to maintain a semblance of dignity.
Right.
And perhaps even garner public sympathy.
It's possible that it's like a combination of factors, you know, a deep-seated belief in his own narrative, intertwined with a reluctance to fully acknowledge the consequences of his actions.
Absolutely. And regardless of his motivations, his unwavering stance raised these intriguing questions about the nature of accountability and the possibility of redemption without admitting wrongdoing.
So ultimately, it's up to each individual to draw their own conclusions about Blagojevich's motivations and legacy.
I think so.
But one thing is certain.
Yeah.
His story serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of human nature.
For sure.
The allure of power and the importance of ethical leadership.
Absolutely.
Blagojevich's rise and fall is a cautionary tale.
It is.
That continues to resonate, urging us to reflect on the choices we make when ambition and opportunity collide.
Well said.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has.
And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
Be sure to check out the show notes for all the resources that we mentioned.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
All right, sounds good.